And school's in session now because Ben Joy's here to teach us all something about the world of video games. Ben, thanks for coming on the show.
No worries. Thank you for having me, as always.
Yeah, it's nice to have you on. It's nice to see you. Live from your living room in Leeds this week, right?
I am in Leeds at the moment, yes. I came up here for Christmas and might be here for a while.
The English Riviera.
Yeah, as it seems. So, yeah, I'll be coming from here for at least another week or two, I would imagine.
Yeah. What are you here to tell the folks about today? You hear about fashion in games, right?
I am, and I'm pretty hurt by what Dan said. That was very mean. Even though I was going to say it myself, self-deprecating, it's harsher when someone else says it. It's fine for me to rag on myself, but come on, Dan.
Dan suggested that maybe you weren't the authority on fashion that you're about to claim to be, but I think you've got this.
Thank you.
So you're talking about collaborations, basically, between gaming brands and fashion companies. Where do you want to start?
I want to start with something that happened this week, which was quite shocking is maybe too far, but quite surprising to happen. So The Sims is well known for collabing with brands. It's a pretty good game to collab with, especially for lifestyle brands because it's a lifestyle game. Mm-hmm. And they recently collabed with MAC, the makeup company, to release what was a new eyeline wear. So you could get these in the game, and then you can buy the real things to wear. And it's not gone down very well. It's an example of how not to do a collab, really. So fans have criticised it, saying it feels lazy, it doesn't really fit. And the problem is that it's now come out that it's an old line. It's not new. It's like previously a line that they've run before that they've just brought back. And reading an interview that they did about the collab, they kind of span on that it was, new and specifically designed for this, and fans have basically said, no, this doesn't link to Sims 4 at all. It's literally just an old line you've rolled out and thrown the Sims logo on. And
they didn't even change the names, right? So it's like all the individual components that you get. Obviously, this is straight white guy explains makeup to you at home. But, they have names, these individual ingredients, components, bits of makeup that you get in the set. And they didn't even have, Sims-themed names or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the packaging, it's a blue box, like the Sims blue that just says the Sims 4 on it. You open it up and it is just, the colours with the, regular names. And it's kind of like, that's not how you do a collaboration. A collaboration is not going, stick a logo on there. We're a partnership. We're in this together, pushing this forward. It's kind of, it is very lazy. And for two big companies, like EA and for Mac to do that, it's kind of like, you've really missed the mark, and you wouldn't expect it from, companies of this size, and especially EA, and with The Sims, who've been there and done that. I mean, they've done really great collabs in the past. They had a good one with H&M. They had a really good one with IKEA in the past. Things that made sense, and they actually look like they put some effort in. Whereas this just seems to have been an afterthought and been rolled out and not really thought about. So that's an example of how not to do it.
Yeah, Emma Budd in the chat's got a comment which I think I should read out on air. She said, "That's it. Take away their ladders from their swimming pool."
Yes, we've all done that. We've all done that. Or stick them in a room with the fireworks, set the fireworks off, take the doors out. If you want to go out with a bang.
So if you want to do it well, then have you got some examples of people who have done it well recently that you want to contrast with?
Yes, there's actually a direct comparison. So it's not in games, but makeup brand, which I hadn't heard of until I was looking into this, called Colourpop. And they've done quite a lot of collabs before. And very recently, they have done a collab with Disney and The Mandalorian, which I finally watched all of it now. Love it. Thanks for the recommendation.
You're welcome.
And they did it with The Mandalorian. And if you look at, it's called The Child. So it's immediately been named after something relevant to The Mandalorian. You look at the packaging and it's got Baby Yoda all over it. You open the box and it's got a mirror and it says the shiniest star in the universe and stuff like that. And the colors are all,
Baby Yoda green.
Yeah, they're kind of they fit the color tone of the show, and they have names that are relevant for the show. So there's stuff I wrote it down. So there's one that's like an orangey one, which is just like a Tatooine. There's one little frog, right hand Mando. So if you've watched the show and you're interested in it, it's caught your attention because you're like, oh, I like this makeup brand, or I like that show, I'm going to look at this makeup brand. You can see that the effort's been put in, and that's a collaboration.
Yeah.
That's been thought out and rolled out well, as opposed to them going, oh, everyone's, a lot of people like The Mandalorian, let's partner with Disney and throw that logo on there and we'll say it's a collab. Like, it's just a stark contrast of a company that's nowhere near the size doing it so much better. Obviously, Disney is huge. So I'm more referring to ColourPop against Mac and NEA. But that's an example of how to do it well, and that lands really well. And that's people like that. If you're going to do it lazily, basically just don't do it, because it's only going to hurt. It's not going to help.
Yeah, I think we've talked, or we always maybe struggle to put it into words, but there's this idea, in our space that games have like a DNA to them. Like, if you want to get like crazy scientists about it, when you're talking about a marketing campaign or a collaboration or a website or a companion app, whatever it is that you're doing that's part of your brand, it should have your brand's DNA in it. It should feel like your brand. It should share, common principles with your brand, tone of voice with your brand. And I think, the Sims one definitely missed the mark. And it's good to hear that, other companies are doing better. Are you going to buy the Mandalorian makeup set?
You say that as in future tense, if I haven't already. It's the first thing I did after I.
I mean, it would have been a great reveal for the show if you would come on the show wearing the makeup. That would have been
that would have been the ultimate shutdown to Dan's comment of me not being very fashionable if I'd rocked up in my Mandalorian.
I actually think if you come on in like bright silver, whatever they call it, you put under your eyes, I think that would have impressed me severely. I think you could rock that look. I don't think you should listen to what Dan says. I think you could.
I'm not going to. He'll know that I very rarely listen to the things that he says to
me. What about outside makeup then? What are some other examples of companies that are treading this line successfully?
So there's one which, again, has just happened very recently, and you could say if it wasn't the current situation in the world, it probably would be really successful, but the timing is terrible, which leads to kind of thinking, well, it doesn't actually make that much sense. So in something that's happened in the fashion world outside of video games, so Gucci have kind of paired up with the North Face because Gucci are more wanting to get more into the outside vibe, more into interested in the world outside and getting out and getting active. So they've paired up with the North Face, and subsequently what they've just done is that pairing has now paired up with Niantic and Pokemon Go, and they've released specific areas across different countries where you can go to these Pokestops and you can get Gucci, North Face, branded stuff for your characters, which is great, except you can't really go outside at the moment.
You can have your exercise. You're allowed to do that.
You can, but the problem that there is right now is that in the UK, especially, you can only get them in London. Right. It's nowhere else, and because of the nature of the game, there are specific locations,
built up areas.
So naturally, you don't want to be encouraging people all to go to the same place. So it's a well thought out collaboration, and it's been done well. It's just at the wrong time.
Come back in 2022, Gucci. We're ready for you then.
In unrelated, I saw that Gucci as well they're selling like a £10,000 virtual clothes, which kind of, it's not gaming, but it kind of is
for
in
Pokemon
that
Go.
space.
Or...
No. This is separate to Pokemon Go. It's just interesting that kind of how the world is going, and we're living in that virtual space. I mean, it seems crazy to me that someone would spend £10,000 on a virtual piece of clothing, but it's a thing.
Hang on, how do you put on these virtual clothes?
I believe there's like I believe there's like an avatar, an avatar wears it, but to me that seems crazy. I don't understand.
It's like the Bitcoin of clothes. You can't touch it or use it, but it has value.
Yeah, it has value. Yeah, it's weird to me, but they've done it, so I would hope some kind of research told them that somebody would want to buy that.
You've actually got a blog on the Etch website at etchuk.com/play, all about brands and some other examples of brands that have worked well with companies. So what I might do is I might put that in the chat for people if they want to go and see this, if they're watching us live on Twitch right now. Are there any other things you wanted to talk about before we wrap things up for the first live show of the year?
Yeah, so another example of it being done well, maybe less of a collaboration, but more brands getting into the gaming space. So the game we talk a lot about, Animal Crossing. So obviously a lot of fashion shows couldn't happen, like Fashion Week couldn't happen in 2020. So that kind of happened in Animal Crossing. There were lots of brands that kind of got involved kind of informally, where they put themselves in it rather than a direct collaboration. But there was brands like Valentino and Anna Sui, apologies if I butchered that, who actually did partner with Animal Crossing, and you could get those branded like garments that they put into the game. Yep. So again, that was a good example of a collab, and something that I stumbled across as well that was interesting, and I'm definitely going to butcher this name. I think it's an Italian fashion company called Balenciaga. So they actually released their line for fall 2020 in a game that they made themselves. So it wasn't linked with an existing video game IP. They released their line in a game that they created themselves, and it was called, I wrote it down, Afterworld: The Age of Tomorrow, and it was web-based, so anybody could play it. But it really, really inclusive. It wasn't you'd have to buy anything or have anything other than a device that goes on the internet. And essentially you walked around this world that they had created, and the NPCs were all wearing the clothing lines, and just to make it a bit more interesting, you walked through like the city and got directed to go to this rave, and then through onto this mountain where you're then revealed to be some kind of like warrior wearing armor, and it looked brilliant. You can't play it anymore from when I was poking around, but there's a video to watch kind of how it worked and stuff. So it's an interesting space to be, fashion and gaming. There's a lot happening. We could talk about it for 2-3 hours and not scratch the surface, because there's so much
show's not that long, Ben.
We're not going to talk about it for 2-3 hours.
Show sticks to a strict 45-minute or less policy.
Yeah, but yeah, there's lots going on. It makes sense because so many people express themselves through video games, and there are always typically characters in there, and especially when there's human characters, people want to dress them up and wear them and wear clothes. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, and I think more and more brands are going to get in on it, and I think you'll start seeing more and more the contrast between the real world and the digital world, and you'll see them in both. So things you can get in the game, you can get in real life, so that people can mirror those worlds rather than being totally separate.